back in the garage, back in the garage, back in the garage today, back in the garage today. Alright guys, back in the garage today, getting ready to install the Rottweiler Airbox on my KTM 1290 Super Adventure. Now, in order to get started, you need to remove the gas tank and everything else you see here. I'm going to link the video how to do that up in the upper right-hand corner. It will also show you how to put everything back together once we get done. All right, so the first thing we want to do is disconnect this connector. You just push in on this tab here. There it goes, pops right off. Now, you'll see it is kind of interwoven in there. Just go ahead and pull it out of those little tabs. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws we're going to have to take out of here. I believe these are all 6mm. Now with all 8 screws removed, we just have to pop the top of this off. There's a little hose right there. Alright, so with the top of the airbox removed, the next thing we need to do is remove the filter. That's done by just popping out this wedge and popping this out. Since I'm going to replace the entire airbox, I don't really need this stuff anymore. Now we are going to be reusing the air temperature sensor and reusing these screws, so we're going to go ahead and remove it from the top of the factory airbox. It's a Torx T15 bit. Alright, so now you want to take your air sensor and we're going to put it in the base plate of your new Rottweiler airbox, reusing the factory screws. Now you may see I mounted mine so the connector's on this side, and it's just because it looks like there's a little bit more clearance there, so if you've got to unplug this thing later on, it should make it a little bit easier this way. Be careful not to over tighten this because you don't want to bust the plastic on this air sensor. Alright, so next up we're going to remove the velocity stacks. While it looks, you could get an 8mm wrench on here, but it's going to be difficult to get a socket because if we zoom in there, you can see there's like a little piece of the stack that's kind of blocking it there. So I'm just going to use a T30 Torx bit and get these 4 screws out. There's the first one off. There's the second one off. Now we're ready to remove the airbox out of place here. Let's see. I'm going to disconnect. It's a little hard to see. There's these snorkels up front. I can pop those out of place a little bit. Alright, got it most of the way. Let's see what's holding me up here. And snorkel's out. The other snorkel is out. Okay, so if we look down here, this SAS valve hose has to be pulled off. It's going to be really difficult for me to record that, so I'm going to go ahead and do it and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. Alright, so over here on the left-hand side, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, there is a drain hose back here that I'm going to have to get my pliers on to get the clamp off of. I'm going to get that disconnected. Alright, so I got that drain hose unhooked that I'll show you in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and pull these snorkels out just to give you a little bit more clearance to work. Alright, finally got the stupid thing off of here. Let me show you a few things. Alright, so this is on the right hand side of the tank. You're going to have to disconnect it. There is a clamp on there. The big thing is all of this crap here is just kind of stuck on. As you can see, there's like a rubber grommet. Just push that down. You're not going to break anything. Over on the left hand side there is this little drain hose. That one's a little bit easier to get to than what this big fat one is over here. But just disconnect that hose, and then like I said, just kind of push that because it's just kind of a rubber grommet down off the airbox. And you'll get this airbox off of here. Now I'm done with this, and Rottweiler says just throw it in the trash. I don't know that I'll do that. Man, this thing's a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be. Also go ahead and pull out your snorkels. The right one comes up pretty easy. The left one I had to pull back through the frame to get it out of the bike. Alright guys, so as part of the Rottweiler Stage 3 kit, it came with fuel dongles and also the little block off plates here. What this is going to do is help enriching the air-fuel mixture, especially at lower RPM, so it should be a little bit better throttle response and just overall run a little bit better. So I'm going to show you how to put these on. It's fairly straightforward. Now essentially what we're going to do is end up replacing the O2 sensors. We are going to replace them with these little block-off plates. Now we could just leave them in there, but it saves a little bit of weight and it just tidies things up. But first thing you want to do is find, you can start on either one, we're going to find the front one here, and then we're going to trace the wiring harness back and figure out where it plugs in. Okay, so if we trace this wire up, you see it plugs in right here. So we're actually going to unplug this. Now with it unplugged, what we want to do is fish it back down through the frame here. So what we're going to do is take one of these dongles and plug it in directly to here, and that will fool the computer into thinking the O2 sensor is still hooked up. That's what the dongle looks like plugged in. All we're going to do is just kind of make sure it's tucked back inside the frame here. Now all we're going to do is throw a 17mm wrench on this O2 sensor, get it loosened up, and spin it out of the exhaust. And here's the nasty old O2 sensor. You can hold on to this if you want. You can throw it away. I'll probably hold on to it. Who knows, you might, these plugs or something may come in handy at a later date. Or maybe you ever want to put it back to stock, you'll still have your O2 sensor. But obviously we don't want to leave a hole in the exhaust. That would be bad. So that's why we got these little bungs or plugs, whatever you want to call them. It does have a copper washer, so we're going to get that threaded into place and snugged up. To tighten this up, go grab your standard set, because I found a 1/4 inch actually fits this thing best. Alright, so now we have one dongle installed and one O2 sensor removed. Now, I don't know if you guys can see, there we go. Right back in there is our next O2 sensor. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to trace this wiring up and see where we need to unplug it. To make things a little easier, I went ahead and took off this little rubber hose clamp. We'll reuse this. There's also a zip tie right up here. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it and then replace it in a second, but it makes it a little easier to get this out. If you do cut the zip tie, just be very, very careful, because your brake lines are there and you don't want to cut into those. All right, so now we got a little bit more free play here. Now, if we look up here, it looks exactly like the plug from the other one, so we're going to undo this. Now I got all this crap in the way. And then we're just going to plug in the dongle to this plug. Alright, so we'll take dongle number 2, plug into right there. Then we're just going to snap this back down into place. There's a spot there for it. There we go. And now we're just going to thread this back down through the frame. This was a little bit easier to snake through the frame. Now we're just going to get a 17mm wrench down there on the O2 sensor and get it removed. And here's O2 sensor number 2. Same deal. We're going to grab the bung and plug it into place back there. Alright, got the plug in there. The only thing I have left to do is replace the zip tie up here. Alright, so we got the Airbox base plate and the included O-rings. We're going to drop those down in there and then pack them with grease. Alright, there are the O-rings installed and packed with grease. Alright, now we're going to set this down on top of the throttle bodies. We got to remember to hook up the breather hose here. We also have to remember to plug in the air temperature sensor. Alright, you can see I got that breather hose hooked back up. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see where the wires run up to the air temperature sensor, and this thing should just kind of like snap right down into place. Now I'm actually installing the Rottweiler velocity stacks. We are going to reuse the factory mounting hardware. I just have them set next to each other here for comparison's sake. This is the plastic factory stack, and this is the billet Rottweiler stack. So anyway, we're going to rob these fasteners to fix these onto the bike. You may have a little bit of trouble getting these out because of this plastic tab. Just take a little bit of screwdriver and it'll pop it right out of place, just like I did the other side. Alright, so you can see I set down the stack with the little bushings in there, and now we're just going to put these screws down in each slot and get these tightened down. Alright, so I got the first one on good and snugged up, and I'm going to put the second one on. Alright, we got both stacks on, and I forgot to mention I did use blue Loctite when putting these down. The instructions did recommend using some sort of locking agent. That's what I had on hand. Alright, so essentially I now have the Airbox installed, but we haven't put the filter on. Rottweiler recommends no toil. I'm going to oil these filters, let them sit for 30 minutes. And I say filters because I'm going to do the filter and the pre-filter. And then we're going to come back and install it on the bike. You can see I got my rubber gloves on. It gets a little nasty, so I'm going to get to work. Alright, so I got the filter oiled and let it sit for about 30 minutes. Now we're going to put it on the Airbox. This little piece here clips under here. And then we're going to run these two tabs down. Heard that one snap. And the front one snap. Now the next part is optional, but I am using the pre-filter. It comes with the black colored one. I'm gonna put the red one on. All right, so that concludes putting the Airbox on the bike, how to install it. Go to the other video if you need to know how to put your tank and everything back on. We will cut back here once I get all of this crap, well, not that Airbox, but once I get everything else put back on the bike, and we'll start it up and see how it sounds. So as I went back to edit the video, I realized I didn't hit the record button so you guys could hear what the bike sounds like. I've warmed it up a little bit, so let's get it started back up and you can hear what it sounds like with the Rottweiler Airbox installed. So hopefully you guys were able to tell a little bit of a difference in sound from this air intake versus the stock intake. I know in person it sounds quite a bit different, and I've had the chance to ride this bike a few times since installing it, and I'm thrilled to death with it. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button. We'd love to have you around. If you've got any questions about the installation or anything since then, be sure to let me know in the comments section below. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.